So Jivo, throughout this course we have been using sort of lots of classes that we've just sort of set apart of Foundation. We've been using strings, we've talked about arrays, we've talked about dictionaries in the last section, and we've just been glossing over and glossing over and glossing over, and we kept saying, oh, that's part of Foundation and we'll deal with it later. Well, we're at the Foundation sort of introduction segment, so I guess we have to start talking about these things now.
Yeah, so I mean, before we actually start digging into the actual classes of Foundation, I thought it'd be kind of useful for us to sort of talk about what is Foundation. You know, why do we care? What does Foundation have to do with Objective-C? So the fact is, well, if you're familiar with like C or Java, you're probably familiar with the libraries that go along with those languages. You know, the standard libraries like the C standard library or the Java class library and so forth. Foundation is essentially the Objective-C version of those libraries. It provides things like string classes, like collection classes, all kinds of stuff. It's really a fundamental part of Objective-C. Without Foundation, you really don't, I mean, you've got a language there, but you don't have most of what makes Objective-C really cool. For example, it's Foundation that actually includes the NSObject class itself. So without Foundation, you wouldn't even have an NSObject class. So that means you actually wouldn't get anything like retain and release and all of those things. Those are all part of Foundation too. So the fact is, we've really been using Foundation all along. It's just that, you know, that's part of the library that's used with Objective-C. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense.
Now, you know, I kind of feel like, I mean, there's a lot of classes in Objective-C, and I mean, we could or in the Foundation framework, we could probably sit here for another, you know, 50 hours doing a talk strictly on all of the different classes. There's things like, well, you know, there's NSBundle, which allows you to handle bundles. There's NSLock, which lets you handle thread locks. There's NSEnumerator, which we saw, right? There's NSFileHandle, which allows you to work with files. There's NSTask, which lets you launch tasks in the background and things like that. So we can't really go into all of those different classes. If you really want to, you know, learn more about those classes, the Foundation documentation is very good. It's included in Xcode. And as you work through things like Cocoa and stuff like that, you'll become much more familiar with a lot of those. And arguably, you could almost say that some of those things really are part of Cocoa, even though Cocoa is really oriented towards the GUI end of things. You use a lot of those things more when you start working on more complex applications that don't just use Foundation. So the classes that we're going to work with are really the bare bones, bottom, simplest classes. We're going to show you how to use NSString, which is very much a foundational class. You know, it's something that you use all over the place in lots of different places. We're also going to show you how the collection classes work. So NSArray, NSDictionary, NSSet, those guys. You know, those are all the collection classes that you handle and manage groups of objects. We'll also look at NSValue, NSNumber, and NSData, because those classes are necessary to work with the collection classes. You need to use those so that you can box scalar types so that you can store those into those collection classes. So those are kind of a necessary fundamental thing as well. So basically, that's where we're headed next.
Okay, so we're going to deal with them one at a time.
Yes.
And I guess start with NSString.
Yes.
Okay, that's what we're doing. Come back.